Excellent. So question number one, why is there a leap year this year in the Hebrew calendar? And what does this mean? So it's a great observation indeed. Right now, there is a leap year in the Jewish calendar as mentioned, and therefore we add an additional month to this calendar year of 12 months, making it a 13-month year. The month that we add is this month, the month of Adar, and therefore you have Adar 1 and Adar 2. Why do we have a leap year? That is because we follow the lunar calendar. But there's a problem with the lunar calendar, a problem that the lunar calendar creates for us, because God also tells us to celebrate some of the festivals based on the solar calendar. For example, Passover is called Chag Aviv, and it therefore should be celebrated during the spring season. That again is dependent on the sun, on the solar calendar. So if we only follow the lunar calendar, which is a shorter calendar, it's 254, I think, 254-day calendar, then we'll end up like the Muslims, for example, who have Ramadan in the summer sometimes, in the winter sometimes. It falls on different seasons again because the calendar is much shorter. So we may end up having Passover also in the winter, but Passover needs to be in the spring. So in order to adjust our calendar so that it can still run parallel to the solar calendar, we add a month once every 2 to 3 years. When we add a month, then it's called a leap year, or in Hebrew, Shana Me'uberet, which does not mean a leap year, it means a pregnant year. And it's important to note because spiritually, there's significance to this term of pregnant year. It means it's pregnant with blessings. And that's also why the month of Adar is added as opposed to any other month. There is a theory in the Talmud that the month of Av should be added. But no, the month of Adar is added because the month of Adar is the happiest month of the year. This is the month in which Purim is celebrated. This is the month in which the Talmud tells us that when Adar comes in, Mishenichnas Adar, Marbim B'Simcha, we have to increase joy and happiness. This is the month in which Jewish law tells us that if you have a lawsuit, you should schedule it during this month, because during this month, you have greater mazel, you have greater fortune, it's a happy month, and therefore, you might be, your chances of your victory are greater. Anyway, this is a month of tremendous blessing, and therefore, it's specifically this month that is added. The Lubavitcher Rebbe added another dimension, another perspective to this, that is that when we add an additional month to this month of Adar, an additional 30 days, so in total, we'll have 60 days of Adar, right? 2 months, 30 each, that's 60 days. 60 days of Adar. 60 is an important number in Judaism. We find the number 60 when it comes to the laws of mixing meat and milk. One is not allowed to mix meat and milk. But let's say there's a drop of milk that fell into a pot of meat. If there is 60 times the amount of meat against the drop of milk, you can have the meat. Because number 60 comes to nullify any foreign matter. Now, same year, we have 60 days of happiness. 60 days is, again, the number 60 is a number that overpowers any type of matter or any negativities. So 60 days of happiness, when we have 60 days of happiness, then we have the power really to overcome any negativities. So again, 60 days of happiness. And that will ensure that this year will be a year of happiness. That's the theme that overpowers, again, any negativity. And a year of blessings, please God, a year of redemption. So that's how often, again, 2 to 3 years when we have to adjust it. Of Adar, 30 days of, you mean the holidays is also 6 days, because it's Elul and Tishrei. If you count Elul and Tishrei, and with all the festivals, you have 60 days. That's where you find the number 62. That's right. That's a good question. So what happens? Do you celebrate on Adar 1, on Adar 2? Or do you celebrate your birthday twice? Why not? 2 birthday cakes. Oh, no, that's February 29th. That doesn't happen in the Jewish calendar. The Jewish calendar, if you were born on Adar Aleph, so then you celebrate every year in Adar. But if you were born in a regular Adar, or even in a non-regular Adar, all birthdays are celebrated on the second month of Adar. So that's when also Purim is celebrated. Purim is not celebrated in the first month of Adar, it's celebrated in the second month of Adar. Yeah. Question. Okay, yes.
This read what I was doing, but I was trying to look up my husband's yahrzeit.
Yes.
Are there 2 dates in?
It's an excellent question, right? So we spoke about birthdays. What about yahrzeits? In Adar, what happens to yahrzeit when you have 2 months of Adar? When do you commemorate the yahrzeit? In the first month or the second month? Adar 1, Adar 2. There's an argument. It's a Sephardic Ashkenazic thing also. Many say it's during the first Adar. Some say it's during the second Adar. It depends who you follow.
But it's not both.
Not both.
Okay. And which one is the first? Sephardic.
Most Sephardic, not all Sephardic. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Okay, so we covered also birthdays and yahrzeits during the leap year. So that's the leap year, and I hope that answered that question. Question number 2, with all that is happening, I wanted to ask a basic question. How is Judaism linked to the state of Israel? Okay, it's a good question, and it's important to refresh our memories, especially in times like this, of how Judaism is linked to the state of Israel. So it really begins during the first moment of creation. When God created the world, he stated to the whole world that the world belongs to him, right? He created it. If I create this plastic bottle, it belongs to me until I sell it. God never sold the world. So whenever you create something, it belongs to you. God created the world and belongs to him. And therefore, when God created the world, he could allocate pieces of the world to whoever he wanted to. He allocated Israel to the Jewish people. How do we know that? We know that from the beginning of times, from Abraham already. When God says to him, I'm going to give this land to you, this land that I just asked you to move to. Well, this is the land that's going to belong to you, and to your descendants. How do we know that it's not Ishmael? Because God says, and I'm quoting word for word, Yitzchak is going to be your descendant. He's going to continue that legacy, not Ishmael. So therefore, the land of Israel belonged to you and to that lineage of Yitzchak, to your descendants. But we see that commandment of God giving the Jewish people, Israel, that land, time and time again. It appears maybe 25 times in the book of Genesis alone. Then afterwards, with Moses, and afterwards again with towards the end of Moses' life, when Moses himself speaks to the Jewish people and says, this is the land that you will inherit. So we find that time and time again in the Bible. That's connection number 1. Afterwards, also in the prophets, we find that they went and inherited the land too. King David, for example, purchased Temple Mount with 3,000 golden coins. It says so in the Tanakh. And King David was the king of the Jewish people. Same with, you can say, Shechem. When the Jewish people finally, after 40 years in the desert, came to Israel, they purchased Nablus, Shechem. Why? To bury Joseph. Joseph is buried there until this day. So they were also acts of purchase beyond the divine order that the Jewish people should receive Israel. They were actual transactions that made us maybe legal or legal owners, purchasers of the land of Israel. That's number 2. Number 3, it's interesting because I don't think that there is any other country like this in the world, but there has been a continuing inhabitants of the Jewish people in Israel for now over 3,000 years. For 3,000 years, there have been Jews living in Israel. Sometimes more Jews, sometimes less Jews. But there's been a continuous inhabitants of the Jewish people again in the land of Israel, which then in of itself asserts our relationship with the land. And then there are, of course, mystical signs. For example, whenever the Jewish people lived in Israel throughout history, Israel was a land that truly was flowing with milk and honey, was flourishing. Look at Israel today. It's a startup nation. Israel is booming on so many levels. Did that happen when Jews were not owning the land, were not the political governors of the land? It didn't. Maybe because the land of Israel itself is saying, I'll only cooperate when my people are here, the people that belong to me and that I belong to, not with others. So you have mystical aspects to that relationship between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. And in fact, the Kabbalah says, Book of the Zohar says, written 2,000 years ago, that there are three linkages that are unbreakable. And that's Torah Israel, Am Israel, and Eretz Israel, which means the Torah of Israel, the nation of Israel, and the land of Israel. These three form that unbreakable chain of all generations. Now, one last point, I will add that it's also clear in our prayers how connected we are to the land of Israel. Just think about this. Every time we eat bread, we have to say Birkat Hamazon. In one of the blessings of Birkat Hamazon, we pray, Uvnei Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, please God, rebuild our city, Jerusalem. Seven out of the 19, 18 plus 1, the 19th one was added, but out of the 19 blessings in the Amidah prayer, which is the holiest prayer, are dedicated to the land of Israel and to the redemption. Every year on Passover, when Jewish people, we all know this, when they gather together with their families, how do they conclude the Seder? L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, right? Next year in Jerusalem. So in prayer itself, we also find a deep longing and connection that the Jewish people have always had to the state of Israel. So how is Judaism linked to the state of Israel? In many more ways than one, as we've just stated. That's question 3. That's question 2. Question 3. I've had a very rough relationship with someone in my family, but I'm beginning to lose hope that this person will change in a good way. Can a person really change? Can people really change? That's the question. So I don't know exactly what the situation is here, and I have to, like in anything else, I have to know more in order to know what this change is referring to. But I will say this. I'll make 2 observations. Observation number 1, I'm just throwing this out there. Sometimes when we have rough relationships, we first and foremost have to look at ourselves, because it could just be a reflection of our bitterness, of our tension. And when we're not at peace with ourselves, then we won't be at peace with anyone around us. I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just saying that sometimes. 2, can a person really change? I don't think that Judaism believes that people can change. I think that we can become, not change. The difference is this. Change means that I have to be someone else to change from mode A to mode B. Become means that I just have to enhance who I truly am. I have to become who I was born to be. Or better, I have to become my soul. So you can change from the mode of your body to the mode of your soul, but then you're not really changing. You're just really revealing your deeper self. And in many ways, the problem with relationships is that we communicate with the mode of the body, so to speak, not with the mode of the soul. And if people would recognize first and foremost that they have a soul, then they could begin indeed to improve themselves and to have better relationships. Now, this is speaking about others or speaking about the person here who's asking the question. Sometimes we have to change that mode from the mode of the body to the mode of the soul. What I mean by that is this. I'll give you an example that I may have quoted in the past, but it's interesting. It's an interesting exchange. I have a dear friend whose name is Shmuley Green. He's been here a few times, Rabbi Shmuley Green. His father was a professor at NASA. He was, in fact, the one who was in charge of exploring whether there's life in Mars. He had asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe whether this is something worth doing or not. Maybe he's just wasting his time. And the Rebbe told him, by all means, you should explore whether there is life in Mars. Not because I know that there is life or I just don't know. But saying that there's no life in Mars will be limiting God. And no one has the power to do that. But he had a very special relationship with the Rebbe, and one year he asked him 28 questions about, this professor asked the Rebbe about conflicts that he saw between Judaism and science. And the Rebbe ignored him at first. After about 3 years, Professor Green writes to the Rebbe saying, look, I want you to know my children have been enrolled in Jewish schools and we've taken leaps and bounds in our Jewish journey. And then the Rebbe responded, thank you for those good news. P.S. Here are the answers to the 28 questions you asked me 3 years ago. And then the Rebbe said, you may ask yourself, why did I wait 3 years to answer you? I'll tell you why. Because my job in life is not to win arguments. My job in life is to bring people closer to their Judaism. Now that I see that you become closer, so here are the answers to your questions. Here's the Rebbe referring again to the soul of the person. And that's what we focus on. When we focus on the soul, then people don't change, people become. Now, does it always work? No, it doesn't always work. But we can at least try. Last question. Why are Jews called people of the book? So I don't know if you know this, but we didn't coin that term. Jews didn't coin that term. You know who called us the people of the book for the first time? Muhammad. He called us the people of the book. And perhaps it was because indeed we were so dedicated to the book, to the Torah, as we are until today. That has been the anchor of the Jewish people for thousands of years. And that anchor is really what has kept us alive and true to who we are.